Everybody is fine until something happens with a customer, and then you really find out where your partnerships are. When things really get tough, how do we work together to get through it?
If something happens, you can either react or you can respond. And I think the big thing in our business is our teams have responded.
That's a testament when customers gravitate towards partnerships. They look to that partnership and that leadership to know that you're going to get them through tough times.
Welcome to Shift Happens. 35 years ago in South Africa, two companies shook hands. Not signed a contract, but shook hands. And somehow that handshake turned into one of the most successful partnerships in the world. Today, NTT DATA and Cisco together serve 75% of the Fortune Global 100, span 50 countries, and have just launched a new era of AI-powered co-innovation. But I don't want to talk about the numbers today. I want to talk about the people, the moments, and the decisions that made this last. This is Shift Happens, and today, we're 35 years in. With me today is John Van Der Vyver, an executive consultant for NTT responsible for the Cisco relationship, and Tony Meredith, who works for Cisco and leads the overall relationship for NTT. Welcome to both of you. John, I'll start with you. Where does this podcast find you?
Good afternoon, Jeff. Great to see you again. As always, I live in Cape Town. I mean, today is actually my 20th wedding anniversary. And if I think about my marriage to Cisco, that's on 31 years. So sure, I've had two big relationships in my life. So both of these are very important to me.
Amazing. And we can get into that amazing piece of land and where you live in Cape Town, because I've heard the stories and it is quite fantastic, John. But thanks for joining. And Tony, how about you? Where does this podcast find you?
Well, hey, Jeff. Hey, equally as cool, you find me in Cincinnati, Ohio, which, is a big destination like Cape Town. I'm in Cincinnati. Jeff, man, I loved your intro. Thank you. Those numbers sound really impressive. So 35 years, 75% of the Fortune 100. That's good stuff.
It's amazing to think about, and I've been fortunate enough. This one's special to me for sure. I've been fortunate enough to play a very
Yeah.
small part of that 35-year relationship. But I think to me, the power is the durability of it and how long this relationship has lasted and the success. Because if we think back, and we'll go there in just a second, 1990, there I mean, that's a long time ago. The internet was an idea in a back room somewhere. There was no Amazon, there was no Google, nobody had iPhones. They looked like bricks in big suitcases that we carried around for phones. And so, for perspective, this is just such an amazing story about an amazing partnership. But maybe if we can, let's go all the way back. Um, John, I'll ask you first. Take us back to where this started. What did 1990 look like for, and I'll say, and by the way, just for listeners, we'll interchange two names, but back then it was Dimension Data. Now it's NTT, but Dimension Data. So what did Dimension Data look like back then? And Tony, I'll come to you in a second, but what were you guys doing? What did enterprise networking look like? What was this magical thing called a router that we now use quite a bit? But take us back to where this started.
Sure, Jeff. I think you got to realize then business was a lot slower. It was more simple. I think the expectations from technology were a lot less. The requirements were a lot less. I mean, those days we still had bank checks. There were modems, TDMs. I mean, the fax machine was the best salesperson in the company because most of the orders arrived through the fax machine. So I think life was very, very different. I think the attitude to the market, the will to win, the DNA of both our companies and our leaders is pretty much the same. So while the games changed around us, I think what brought us together as people actually is pretty much the same.
Yeah, it's fascinating that you go to the people part of this, because I mentioned it as we opened the episode. This started with a handshake. It wasn't a signed agreement. It wasn't a contract. And there's so many great stories around, the founders of Dimension Data and the overall, just the way this partnership started. But maybe take us back, John, if you don't mind, and talk about that handshake and what it meant to to look each other in the eye and agree to partner because as I think about partnerships, it's about the people. The numbers are a result of the people, as you mentioned, and maybe give us a window into that handshake and what was going on and how that all came together.
Jeff, for sure. In those days, Dementia Data went to California to obviously find new products for a growing market. And our leaders met Chambers, and Chambers was a very principled and strategic leader. And he actually said, look, I really like you guys, but as long as Nelson Mandela's in jail, I will not publicly support you representing Cisco in South Africa. And that was a very noble statement, but it was actually, in a funny way, it was actually very lucky for us because, like sport, life, business, you need timing and you need luck. And in the year or two between then and when Mandela got out of jail, the winds clocked very heavily in Cisco's favor. You know, the domination of their technologies over their competitors increased. And when Mandela got out of jail, Chambers phoned up our founders and says, gentlemen, I remember my promise. I'm good for that. And from now on, you'll be our partner in South Africa. So it was a very special moment, but it was a moment out of principle that actually worked in both companies' favor.
Yeah, that I love that story because it does it talks a lot about the principles of both companies and the people behind that handshake. And um, Tony, I guess maybe I'll go to you for a second because
Yeah.
um, like you weren't there 35 years ago as part of this, but we've known each other quite a bit as well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I would just love to know from your perspective, your journey through Cisco. Maybe share a little bit about your story, your journey in Cisco, but also how your relationship with NTT was before you took this role and how it's evolved now that you're leading this relationship globally.
Yeah, so, it really it's interesting when we think back, when this partnership was formed, and to John's point, and I think back about the leadership between the 2 organizations, and, we're bringing up names, that, boy, we haven't talked about, in a while. It's really interesting, not only, that competitiveness in the market, but what I think about most when I think about the 2 organizations and the leadership, it's really a relentless focus on customers and solving customer problems. I mean, that was always we were always there and everybody, is fine until something happens and then with a customer and then you really find out where your partnerships are. And I think that was part of that initial alignment was, man, how are you when times get tough? And I think both organizations really aligned around picking up the phone. We talk about that handshake, starts with the handshake. But boy, when things really, get tough, how do we work together to get through it? And, when you think of that, and then you bring up my journey, I just started with NTT about 2.5 years ago and I met John, and John and I had that first conversation where he said, "My boy, this is how it works." And it's the same DNA. He was like, "This is how it works. We're gonna be partners, we're gonna work for our customers, get on board, and culturally, that's who we are." And, I love
Yeah.
that. Once we had that, I was like, "John, I'm all in. John, I'm all in for NTT. I get it. That makes sense to me. That's exactly who we are." And, that's where the excitement comes from for me is just, aligning around that culture and customers and doing things, the right way. And as John said, a lot of integrity, how do we show up together? So it's been really fun. So 2.5 years, I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about the history between the 2 companies, and it really matters. It really matters. The 35 years of working together really matters, and John won't ever let me forget it. So
Uh, I, I may have had that same moment with John where he put his arm around, but the thing that I always appreciated was it's not get in line. This is how it works as much as is this is
yeah,
how we work
yeah,
together, right?
yeah,
Like this is
yeah,
a partnership
yeah,
in its
yeah,
truest form, and I think. there's quite a bit of confusion, I think, when people talk about partnership. A lot of times they're talking about transactional things. That's not partnership. That yes, you're doing business together and you're moving numbers, and we talked about that in the opening. But for me, a partnership really revolves around four areas, and I think we've already touched on a few of those. One, do we have aligned incentives? Are we both winning together? And that's this is how we do it, kind of thing. The second is, do we have complementary strengths? We don't need to continually trip over each other trying to do each other's role, and we'll get into that. But and Tony, you hit on this. Have we built durable trust in the hard times? Because that's when you find out about a partnership. And then if you can get through these three things and you say them and they're easy to say, they're really hard to do. But the fourth one is, do we have a shared vision of the future? And so maybe let's go back to the difference between a transaction and a partnership. John, is there a moment when you look back, where in your mind that it changed for you, right? That we weren't just doing business together, but we truly were partners. What do you have a memory or a moment in time, or was it gradual for you?
I think, yeah, that it's like anything, Jeff. It's evolved over time, but I think a couple of things, and it doesn't sound arrogant, but for a long time, Dimension Data had some of the best people in the business, but we clients knew we had the best relationship with Cisco. And the secret sauce is it's not just how good our people were, it's how good we could be with yourselves. And we are very lucky in the channel to be represented by yourself, Mark Davies, McGaw, Zeke, and now Tony. But somehow you guys managed to represent us into Cisco and get Cisco to understand us. And I think that's a huge part of it because you can have common values, you can be where you're going, but when both companies understand where you're going and that you're actually in this together, and I think that was part of the secret sauce that we had the people, but we had the relationships. We were representable. We both actually understood each other. And I think that was a huge basis to be successful.
I love the idea of how good we could be together. I don't think many people think about. I mean, that is really the true definition of a partnership, but so often we get busy and we're so worried about our own challenges that we don't think about how could 1 plus 1 equal more than 2. And I can tell you from experience that Cisco and NTT equal more than just the sum of their parts, right? Because of how good we can be together. Tony, I guess I'll come to you for this one. 2.5 years in, is there a moment where you realize the power and the strength of this partnership and what it actually means?
Boy, well, great question. I don't think there was an exact moment. I think there was a series, Jeff, and I think that's what, getting to know NTT as an organization is it's so vast and there's so much capability that it's taken me 2.5 years just to understand how good these guys are and how good they can be and where we're going together, to your point. So I don't think there was a moment. I think it was a series of moments over time. I mean, John was John was a bit of a mentor there, helping me fully unravel, and I think that's what happens with Cisco folks and our customers is, and I think that's the 35 years as well, is deep relationships over time are the ones that are the most substantive and matter the most, right? And then that's how you build trust. And I think for me over the last 2.5 years, just meeting the team, to John's point, globally and just everyone around the world and how talented those folks are. And that again, it's as John said, it's a people game. So I think the moment for me was just getting out and traveling around the world and meeting all the folks at NTT, and you realize that when they pull this all together in partnership with Cisco,
Mhm.
it's pretty good. I mean, our customers, they really appreciate it when we do that. And so that's probably the biggest aha moment for me. I was just on with somebody from the US and was talking to them about it, Jeff, and it was interesting how I take them through all those moments that I've learned in the 2.5 years about what NTT can do. So, um, the other piece I'd say, and John, yeah, maybe you jump in, the people piece and I know we're going to talk about building trust, but I think spending time together and celebrating and just having some fun, and I know that's a component as well. We've had we've had a lot of fun together.
Hold on, newsflash. You mean
And
you mean we had
newsflash, it's
John and you have fun? Like, I had no idea.
The thing
all
is,
the
part
stories,
of your
right?
success is, Tony, I'd say, the part of the success is when something's tested or something's vulnerable and
Yeah,
somehow we get through it. I always say, Jeff, if you look at the leadership in both our businesses, is if something happens, you can either react or you can respond. And I think the big thing in our business is our teams have responded. Modern leaders react, they escalate. It's about me trying to cover my ass. Cisco always, not always, but very often brought new stuff to Dimension Data first. Whether it was the Ethernet, when Chambers stands up and say it's going to be data, then voice and even video over the internet. And now they're talking about energy network solutions. But Cisco brought us stuff. And let me be clear, not everything worked the first time. I mean, when we did a big project that, obviously Zeke and a lot of you involved in was connected conservation. And there's a great guy at Cisco called David Ward. And we did a lot of the beta technology. And let me tell you, the first little passage out of the harbor was quite rough. And I'd phone him and I'd say, David, there's a problem here. He says, I know. And I said, well, by the way, we've redone the code and have a look at it. He says, geez, Johnny, this almost works. Can I use it? And I'd say, sure. But we'd gone out there, made a big, bold statement, rolled the thing out of the garage and the car didn't start. So you got to very quickly make a plan. Otherwise, look quite stupid when you're pushing your own car down the road. So being vulnerable, you get together. We always had the ability, answer your phone, we'll figure it out. And when you get on top of it, there's a huge sense of achievement and teamwork, and you can laugh together, you can drink together, you can and it's many of those evolutions that have taken us, I guess, to where we are today. I remember the World Cup soccer in 2010. Had him come up with this incredible solution for FIFA, which had never been done anywhere in the world. And we had a chat and we said, look, guys, between us, our eco partners, we'll figure it out. I think we can do this. And we ended up doing 6 out of the 7 stadiums, and somehow they all worked. And it's that kind of stuff. We're all sitting at the World Cup final laughing together that somehow the circus came together and everything worked. And it's those kind of moments where you're vulnerable, you take a chance together, you get your technical teams together, and somehow we get on top of it. And one, we're on top of the market, but there's a great sense that we've done something together. And those bonds are very strong because then when something else comes along, they say, well, let's give it a go because we've had the confidence that we've been out there and together we've kind of figured it out. And I think that's been half the fun.
You know,
wait, hold on,
it
Jeff. I just
uh-oh,
because
come on, Tony.
why does Meredith keep laughing? I can only laugh now because in the moments, again, the partnership, but the laughing just comes from just getting through it together. I mean, that was, because we've always had some, tough things that come up. They always do in a partnership. But man, to be able to laugh, and again, I know the stories are so good. I mean, John, when you talk about what we've done, I mean, you can't in a partnership, you can't take on that type of innovative. People talk about innovation, they talk about partnership, but you can't really take that on, like John said, unless you're willing to be vulnerable and work it out because things are going to happen. They do just in technology, and that's a testament when customers gravitate towards partnerships, they look they look to that partnership and that leadership to know that you're going to get them through tough times, and that starts with that leadership. And we just see it every day. I see it every day. I know we're talking about the 35 years, but I see it every day around the world. This partnership just showing up for customers in a really big transformational way. And I know we're going to talk about the innovation here in a bit, but um, it is the alignment around the partnership that allows the innovation.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you're the one thing that I know about this partnership is we tackle tough problems together. And when you tackle tough problems together, you're going to fail at times. And I think, John, you hit on something. I say it a little differently. You talked about react versus respond. And one of my favorite things that Brene Brown talks about is the desire to get it right, not be right. And I think that is the North Star of this partnership, and it allows us to tackle really tough things. And the other thing that you said that just it brought a smile to my face is the idea of connected conservation and Dave Ward and like we also solve tough problems not just from what can we gain out of it in terms of the business. We're trying to solve tough problems to make the places where we work, live, and play better around us, right? And to do bigger things. And so that is also why it's such an important partnership because we do tough things, we fail together, have fun doing it, and the intent is always to get it right, not be right, and to really respond. That's such a verb that I love, right? Is respond because it's really good. And I guess is there a moment because we again we talk about 35 years, we not only went through the dot-com boom, we also went through the bus together. There's been these moments all the way around, and is there anything that in your mind, John or Tony, that you were like, okay, this is different. This isn't a transaction anymore, right? This is something that's worth the time and the energy and the sweat that it takes to solve these tough problems. I wonder because I've got mine in my head and the time that I spent in this relationship. I just wonder if there's anything that stands out to you.
I have a couple, John. John, I'll go. The first one to me, just in the short time I've been in the relationship, that really stands out. And if I was thinking, why the partnership, I think it would be around sustainability. NTT's approach to sustainability is so world class. It's so differentiated and it matters to all of us. I mean, who doesn't care about clean air? I mean, I think we're all on board with that. And there's a responsibility there as a global organization to have an impact there, and the type of and look, you can talk about it or you can invest in it and put your dollars behind it, and the way NTT puts their dollars behind sustainability, and looking at the problem differently, and I've seen it evolve over the 2.5 years, especially around this massive transition in AI and data center and how much energy and power, that's gonna take. Just to take that problem head on, would just be, and again, it really matters to all of us about the environment and what we're gonna leave for our children. So I applaud NTT. It's something I think. Again, going back to alignment, I think Cisco and NTT show up there, together, and, it's something also we can be really proud of. So I think sustainability, John, I don't know for you.
Well,
Mhm.
I need to jump in just for a
Sure.
second, Tony, because I need to mark this. We have gone 23 minutes and you broke the streak of not mentioning AI.
I
But now, okay,
know,
now
I
we've
was
opened it. All right,
trying
now we're going to
so
talk about it. So,
and you even
and
said, "Don't say it." Oh, I'm so
yeah, no,
close.
I would love to John to hear because for me, here's the fascinating part about the conservation and just the sustainability is we were doing it together and it was really led by NTT to be fair, right? And Dimension Data at that point, but that sustainability piece was for good. And now guess what? As AI comes in, it's also necessary. It's not only good, but it's necessary. And the ability to do those things is going to matter on how successful not only we can be with AI, but the impact that AI has on those communities that we talked about. And John, where does I guess where does that come from your perspective? I know that just from our conversations, and I'm still, the invite has been there, so I won't say I'm waiting on the invite. I just need to get there to go fishing with you and to go enjoy South Africa. But where does that love and that passion for sustainability come from? Is it from those South African roots, or talk to me a little bit about that?
I think, Jeff, it's a good question. I mean, I also very strongly believe in the human network. So, as much as we're selling technology and whatever it might be, there's a human network. People deal with people, people buy from people. And I think both of our companies want to leave business, the environment, a better place. I mean, I think it comes to the strength of relationship. You've got to have a relationship where, as humans, you call each other out, you hold each other to account. And secondly, you got to say, it's not where you stand, it's what do you stand for. And I think you look at the projects across cadet conservation. I mean, that meeting we had in Montreal, where Chambers actually said it was Doc, Chuck was there, the coach was there, and he says, gentlemen, this is an embarrassment. And he says, when, we spoke about the fact how many hundred rhinos have been killed a year in Africa. And we had 100 other things to talk about in the closing meeting, the CEO meeting. I mean, rebates, this, that, there were many, many things. And Chambers said, hang on. He said, gentlemen, this is an embarrassment. We need to sort this out. Half the meeting was taken up with actually something that actually was important, not just to how many dollars entity we're going to get at the end of the year out of Cisco, but this was something that triggered him. And I love that term. He said, this is an embarrassment. We need to sort this out. And it's that kind of thing where it's something bigger than us. And I tell you, out of that story, yes, we did a good job. And let me tell you, there were a lot of people at Cisco that leaned into that deal to make it happen. We could go on from, the many, many people that did it. It was both sides put a lot in there. But the amount of stories that came out of that, and it actually attracted a lot of like-minded customers and people. So that was a big can opener to attracting people, not necessarily the IT manager or the CIO. We opened up new buying cycles and customers, because that's when sustainability was just starting and people were saying, well, hang on, what else are you guys doing? And to Tony's point, we could then open the conversation a little bit wider. And what a lot of people don't know is in that solution with Deep Fusion, that was actually the start of machine learning and AI. So Cisco were actually on that when was that back? 2016, 2017.
Yeah.
AI and machine learning was already in the beta and used in that solution. So we talk about hype cycles. I think between us, we're already almost starting the first hype cycle to that one.
John, let me, because I'm fortunate enough to know the story around connected conservation and the Save the Rhino campaign, but maybe bring our listeners in to what the original problem statement was, and then what was the outcome? What did we accomplish there? Because it's a fascinating story, and I would love to just bring our listeners into that part of this journey with connected conversation and what it ended up doing and what the impact was.
So, Jeff, the problem statement was poaching is basically organized crime. And rhinos and many of the animals like pangolins that underpin both a natural biosphere and ecosystem and a human ecosystem and a tourism and commercial ecosystem. So when you remove the base of an inverted pyramid, which are rhinos and key animals, and their effect on the environment, you basically risk an entire ecosystem. You obviously risk people that are dependent on them, and you also risk people who commercially depend on the outcome of that business for their livelihood. So this had been escalating at an astronomical level through 2013, 2014. We'd had some conversations, and Chambers basically stood up, and luckily we had Chris and Chuck in the meeting, and he said, gentlemen, this is an embarrassment. He said, what do you need? And with Mr. Chambers, you almost called him sir. We said we need people, we need technology, and we need money. And he says, I don't often say this, but you got it, which the silence was deafening. That's not often Cisco. For Cisco to open their wallet and their heart is quite a big moment. Um, but anyway, so we got back and we started interviewing all the stakeholders, and we realized this was a really complicated problem. Many other companies had tried, many other technology companies had tried. They deed horned or put trackers in animals. And we actually called a meeting at the site, and Cisco sent David Ward and a lot of their very clever people out. And we sat for about 2 days. And then it's almost like Wayne Gretzky. You can't chase the puck. You got to go to where the puck's going.
Hmm.
So we actually turned the thing on its head to say, instead of tracking animals, we're going to actually track people and make it really, really hard. Because once a shot is fired, it's too late. There's no rewind button with a dead rhino. So we actually changed the game to track people and use basically collaborative data-driven decision making, where we collected as much information as we could as quickly as possible to actually make informed decisions to actually get to the perpetrator before they got to the animal. So we actually changed the business model on its head and then actually retrofitted the technology between both our companies to achieve that.
And it, it's it's quite interesting as you think about what came together that I don't know that we realized were coming together at that time. So there was a passion for sustainability, and there was a passion for conservation and passion for the animals in the ecosystem. But we talk about ecosystem. We also brought in partners, not just Cisco, not just Dimension Data at that point, but also deep fusion. That was, we talk about AI every sentence or two today, but then we didn't talk about it in those terms, but it was using machine learning to turn this whole problem statement on its head. And I think just and IoT even, that was coming in at the same time, right? And so you bring all these pieces together that started with this idea of doing good, and you build out a solution that we learn from today. And what was the final result? Like, did it work?
It was a phenomenal success. I think we had actually a clean sheet for a year without an animal being poached in the reserve. And obviously, like business, it evolves. Like competition in sport, the teams get better, so the poachers get a little bit more. They work out what we're doing. So we had to, in parallel, evolve the technology, and things like LoRaWAN we built in that process. I mean, that whole sensor network environment we built. There's a lot of things we commercialized out of that, but both companies had to evolve together to actually keep ahead of the competition. And the scoreboard was how many dead animals you have. So as long as you're keeping the scoreboard in low single figures compared to a couple of hundred, you're actually being successful.
Yeah, that's an amazing result, and just again, such a fascinating story of doing good and creating out of that desire to do good. And maybe I'll switch gears here, because the other thing that strikes me is 35 years, you very rarely have one set of leaders that go through that entire partnership. And Tony, maybe I'll come to you because, we mentioned a few names that preceded you, right? That led this relationship. And the one thing that I think, if I had a red thread, the red thread would be they're all characters for sure, right? Like they're quite amazing people with a lot of passion around the business. But maybe I'll this is a curveball. I'm gonna go ahead and say it, Tony. But what what did what did Chris Panzica tell you when that relationship went from him to you? What was there any advice, or was there, because that's so fascinating to me, is how this leadership transitions, but the spirit remains the same. Anything he shared with you
Yeah, so,
that you
sorry,
can
I'm
share without
laughing.
getting us
Yeah,
in trouble? Let me
yeah.
qualify that real quick. Yeah.
So I'm laughing because, you're right, some big characters, big personalities, but I think there is a through line, Jeff, that I think it takes, a NTT has such drive and passion and leadership. I think you've gotta put someone in the role that will show up that way. I did, so I live, as I mentioned at the top of the podcast, I live in Cincinnati, Ohio. Ironically, Chris Panzica lives in Cincinnati, Ohio. So they did a global search to find the person to come in, and they found the person 15 minutes away. Uh, So there's some irony to that. But Chris and I had dinner. I'll never forget it, Jeff. And we talked about the partnership, and we talked a lot about what it means and what it means to Cisco, and how there's so much growth there and so much opportunity. But he was very circumspect. I think he was moving on. He had so much fun working in the relationship, working with Johnny and the whole leadership team. So I think there was some bittersweet to it, Jeff. But yeah, he did tell me, look, you're going to get challenged in a big way, and they're going to have high expectations of you and Cisco and the partnership, and you're always going to be, on your toes every day. And that's what he shared, and that has come true. It every day something new happens around the world with the partnership that I get an opportunity to uh, work through a problem, foster the relationship in a new way. And, Jeff, what's most interesting is you look for data
Mhm.
to validate the partnership. And because we're all data driven, and you say, well, why would I partner? The data in the partnership, we're seeing such tremendous growth and have seen that. Look, we've had our highs and lows over the years, but it's the numbers that validate the partnership, and we've just had tremendous growth in this relationship. And I know John can talk to about it early on with the Dimension Data days, how much the growth was, but that's how customers validate, do they buy the story, do they buy the trust, is it, and you can see that. And you know, right now it's never been better. The growth is there, which is the market saying, "Yeah, we think this partnership matters, especially in this big transition." I won't use the words, but obviously tremendous transition, and the customers are saying, "Yeah, this 35 years of trust matters to us, and it matters to our business." So I know, John, early on the numbers, John, you should share, because then I mean, it was just a crazy time. Because they
But I
remind me,
think,
hey,
Tony, I
Tony,
think,
you're
Tony, it's funny because I think it's funny if you look what the numbers are built on. I mean, Jeff spoke about it earlier about critical events. Before we had CGEM and before we had HSBC and the global accounts, there was quite a big global deal going. And the client director or the CD, there's always an acronym at Cisco. It's either four letters it's never a big word, it's an acronym. He was hedging his bets. He said, I'm in America, I'm going to deal with these guys. You guys could do Africa, Asia, whatever. And we just said, guys, it's simple. Are you all in? And this guy was, a little bit ambivalent. So they reached out to Chuck. Chuck said, come over. So they went over to his house, rang the doorbell, and they said, look, we serious about this business. This is our investment. Are you serious about us? And they had maybe a bottle or two or three of wine. And then the term came back is we're all in. And that was, I think, our first big global win. And then we won HSBC after that. Then Cisco said, we'll make an acronym called CGEM, Theatre 4, and like a decision like that started a global market segment. Or as I said, I think you don't call it Theatre 4 anymore, but that was CGEM. So if Chuck had said, you know what, I'm going to back this guy, hedge my bets, have four ponies in the race and see who's going to win, I don't know where we would have got. Maybe we would have won. Maybe we didn't. But I mean, that kind of decision kind of started our global business. And if you look at CGEM, it's big on numbers, but it just shows the power of what we can do globally. I mean, so it's debatable where the numbers come from. And I think the relationship, the handshake, people who can call each other out and say, excuse me, we're serious, are you? I mean, that's kind of what the
Yeah.
numbers, the growth, and a lot of this is actually built on.
Yeah, and it's, one, Tony, I'm positive that dinner that you had with Chris Penzica did not occur to Skyline Chili, knowing him, and it
oh,
also included multiple
come
bottles of
on.
very good wine. So I'm positive that is true, in that dinner,
The other
but then
through line, Jeff, as you
yeah,
heard from John.
yeah,
Lot
and
lot
it's one of the things that, my next question, and it's funny, you answered it. I was gonna ask, what's the difference between a long relationship? Because we've got a lot of, I mean, there's people in our lives and relationships that have lasted years, but they're not always durable. And I think you just mentioned two things. One, the willingness to get on a plane and come over and build a relationship with someone, not exchange emails. I had someone on recently that was talking about partnership, and they said, "Look, will you answer the bat phone at 7 p.m. on a Friday when I call?" AI is not going to do that, right? It's going to be people that build relationships that will stand the test of time. And then second, are you all in? Because that's the definition of durable. Are you all in, and are you willing, Tony, to your comment earlier, to be vulnerable? Are you willing to fail with me? Are you willing to celebrate with me? Are you willing to do all the things in between? That's the definition of a durable partnership. And you just highlighted it so well, John, in terms of what it means to build that. And I guess maybe if we could maybe move into, because the other thing that I know to be true is over 35 years, both of us have had to reinvent ourselves multiple times throughout that process. And so if and this I'd love for both of you to answer just from different perspectives, but it was there is there any assumptions or ways that we traditionally did things that we had to let go of or evolve to stay relevant as technology changed, as the market changed, as the opportunities became different? What allowed both Cisco and NTT to evolve independently and together over those 35 years?
Yeah. Hey, for me, John, we were just in a global meeting, Jeff. It's funny you asked that question, and the term that's coming around is we have to unlearn. We have to unlearn certain behaviors, certain things that worked in the past, and people talk about their relationship to growth and what that looks like, and most of the time, growth is about disrupting yourself because what worked one year doesn't work the next year. And I look at this partnership, and I've been in it 2.5 years, and it's changed dramatically in the 2.5 years. Just organizational structures, go to market. I mean, just in the 2.5 years, John and I laugh about it. We'll go, remember 2.5 years ago when it looked like this? And now, my gosh, and all of that is just so that we provide the customers what they need today. Not I mean, everybody loves a good story. I am a big fan of great stories, and great stories we can learn from, but moving forward, you create new stories, and I think that's where we're at right now with the NTT relationship is just creating new stories. You can always talk about the old stories, and they're great and they're fun, but I love creating the new stories, and that's with John and I, we and just that partnership. So, yeah, it's the new stories are coming out because, we can reflect on the old ones, but the new ones coming out, are, I think, even better. So I'm so bullish on the new story
Yeah,
and
but
what they're.
but Tony, I think, it's the same, but it's not. I think as
Yeah,
we've evolved, obviously our stakeholders' expectations change. Obviously, Cisco's a listed company, recurring offers or recurring revenue is a big thing for the market. So there's always the outside pressures that put pressures on us. And if we don't change, there's times in our relationship where we both become a bit myopic. And we obviously had these moments. But I remember we got together in London and they brought in this guy called Todd Hewlin. And obviously the partner model was changing. Whenever there's a partner model change, there's a huge sense. It's a one moment where you do get a little bit nervous because you hold your wallet tightly in your pocket and you make sure nobody's, trying to remove, the dollar bill out of it. And Todd Hewlin stood up and he said, you know what? A big thing is he talked about the gap, the bridge, and the fish. And he said, there's what you are doing, what you could be doing, and what you should be doing. And he says you're probably fighting over the horizon one amount of money when you got to get here. And he spoke about the gap, the bridge, and the fish, which is from where we need to get to, how the models will change. And he said it's the ability to be comfortable in an uncomfortable commercial situation. And that was like the aha moment because we realized we're actually being childish, fighting over trying to hold on to tear $100 note in half and see who's got the bigger half. And it was those kind of moments where you actually realize there's a much bigger game. And if you can transition the model from more hardware based to more software based to how the services model changed, working with the hyperscalers and obviously NTT's one of the world's biggest and most innovative service providers. You look at what we can basically offer, and that's what Todd Hewlin kind of got us to do. And I mean, I don't know if any of you have been, I don't know if you were in that session, Jeff, but it was an amazing moment. Wendy Barr set it up, and suddenly we
Yeah.
realized, okay, maybe we should just look up rather than not look down.
I I think that's really compelling to think about this idea of where we are, what's the gap, and how do we start to move towards great together, right? And what does good look like? And my dad said it in a much simpler way. He used to say, make sure you're not stepping over dollars to pick up dimes, right? Sometimes we're so worried about what's right in front of us that we don't raise our head up to look at the bigger picture of what we could do together and build. And speaking of that, I guess, and you mentioned it, Tony, you said the word, what do customers need today? What what are you most proud of right now that we're working on in terms of innovation and customer challenges that we're solving together?
Well, oh man, it's hard to pick one because we have a lot of co-development going on. There's so much work to be done. I would say solving the energy issue. I think energy is such a big issue right now, and the conversation around disrupting from electrons to photons, right? Like, how do we get to light? You hear that quite a bit within the relationship. What's that next generation of optics look like? How do we move power more efficiently? And so I think just that focus on energy and what that's going to look like in the future has been uh, just so at the forefront of customers. I mean, there's just such a rush for this change in technology. And every time we have this conversation with NTT around energy, we just get into a new set of problems that a lot of folks aren't thinking about and how we're going to move energy around the globe, where that energy is going to come from. So I would say probably the most innovative space would be energy and what that new relationship is going to be for organizations around how much energy they use, how they get it, where they get it from, and what role do we play, both on the Cisco side and the NTT side. So that's probably so what we're doing in the quantum space is also, I mean, just shout out to our teams working in quantum together. There are definitely areas there that could be interesting. So those would be my top 2. I mean, we're working a lot, again, I brought up sustainability, a lot of other areas, but those are probably the top 2.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And by the way, if anybody listening had electrons and photons on your bingo card for Tony Meredith saying that in one sentence, you just got bingo. So perfect. Love that.
I had to say
Um,
that. I watch, Neil deGrasse Tyson a lot, his podcast. I know nothing,
love it.
but I'm so curious about
I,
science.
I learn I learn from you every time, Tony. John, what are you most excited about that we're working on together right now?
Look, I really think the ENS is going to be something big. I mean, as I said previously, when Chambers said we're going to do voice on the network and then video, and then like you look at the World Cup solutions, we have 15 network or 15 systems running on one network. I mean, at the time it was like mind blowing. But I think the biggest thing is AI is a hype cycle. I mean, the hype cycles get gradually smaller and they get commercialized as we move along. We hit things like Moore's Law and all these things. But if you look at when you talk to customers, the average CIO's got a very complicated world where they're quite nervous. Do you go at AI in the center with a data factory? Do you go on the edge? What are your options? And I think the biggest compliment we can take is customers bet on us. So where Cisco and NTT work together, there's actually a huge amount of what we can do. And it's not that you'll keep your job. They believe they can go with us. And I think to me at the moment, that's one of the biggest compliments we can take because, as I said earlier, the technology's changed, a lot of things have changed, but people are still betting on the two companies. And as long as they're betting on us, I think that's a position we can be proud of because at the end of the day, if it's only going to really work for customers if we work together, nobody's going to be able to do half of the stuff on their own. You're going to have to bet on people, and we are saying bet on us.
Such a powerful statement, bet on us. And I guess that last question in the main part of this before we get the lightning round. This is a big one though. So we're celebrating 35 years today. Let's fast forward. Maybe it's not a podcast, maybe it's a show on the moon. I don't know what it'll be in 35 years, but when we're celebrating 70 years of NTT Cisco partnership, what would you want them to say about this particular chapter in that relationship?
For me, Jeff, this was the chapter where they really broke out. Like, this was it. Like, when things went really the relationship was big, it was growing, but this was the time where the partnership really exploded, just got really big for our customers and for Cisco and for NTT. Like, it just went to a different level of innovation, a different level of partnership. I mean, that's what I get up every day thinking about, like, how can we do something really, really big together. And, where is that next big transformation between the partnership? So, I think it'll be, I don't know if we'll be on the moon, maybe. John and I will probably be in some cryosphere, cold storage somewhere. I don't know what your plans are, John. I'm not sure if I would get frozen or not. Maybe.
Love it. John, what would
Yeah,
your answer be?
I think, Jeff, if you look at it, I think it's incredibly exciting. Um, if you look at what NTT is, and I mean, a lot of people don't even realize the full extent of NTT, what we have as R&D, what they're doing. But I think the world's going to come down to a world where what we create is going to, as I said, come down to a group of people that work together. And as AI and all these worlds move, you're going to get concentric additions to what we do that accentuate it, make it cheaper, faster, better assurance, more secure. The world's going to become complicated, but I believe we're going to set something today that as the world gets more complicated, we can actually make it more simple for people to actually know that they're on the right track for their company and what they want to try and achieve. And I think if we can set that foundation today, that's kind of where this thing's going to go.
Wow, I can tell you that customers, anyone on the planet listening right now would would feel much better about this idea of taking something that feels so incredibly complicated right now and having a partnership like NTT and Cisco simplify that, help guide where it ends up 35 years from now. And this chapter is a big step in doing that. And so, just thank you so much to both of you for an incredible, not only conversation, but display of what partnership actually means. Um, and I'd love to maybe go into the lightning round. And the first question will hit on that. If you both get one word to describe the NTT Cisco partnership, what would it be?
Come on, John, John, you come on, you go first. I got some words rolling around my head.
You get one, Tony. You get one.
I know. I gotta be a good editor here and come up with the one. It's tough for me to just have one word. Maybe, I was gonna say formidable, but I might sneak in extraordinary. Um, but I could go a little softer. I wanted to say fun, but that's not, I just watching John on the screen.
So,
Lots and lots.
Cisco salesperson, I give you one word, you get three, right? You
I
went
slipped him in
formidable,
there,
you
Jeff.
went
Uh,
fun. No, I love it. John, what word
I
comes to
want
mind
you to
when you
get John to say one that never happened.
I'd use a word that's not in the Collins dictionary. I'd call it exponential with no E. So it's X and then ponential. Um, because as I said, this world that we're in is going to not be about one of us. It's going to be what we're going to do, navigating a very, very different set of situations around us to actually keep what we need to do for our customers on track. So that's where the X comes in.
so good. Exponential. I have a new way to describe the partnership now, John.
Oh,
Perfect. And I'm gonna end with this one, and I'll tell you the
Jeff,
quick backstory.
do I have to put that on a slide or at least put it up on one?
You got this.
Just
You're voting. Tony, you're going to vote for me. Just put an X there.
there we go.
You got this.
Exponential.
Love it. I love it. Well, I'm gonna close with a quick story and then a question out of that story. So Stacy Betts, who I had on the podcast a bit ago, told this story about a fighter pilot named Charlie Plum. And Charlie Plum had flown 75 missions, and on his 75th mission was shot out of the air and had to eject from his plane. And his parachute opened, he was saved. Decades later, he's sitting in a restaurant as an older gentleman, and this person comes up to him. And this person said, "Hey, are you Charlie Plum?" And he was like, "Well, yeah, who are you?" And he said, "Well, I'm the person who packed your parachute that day that
Jeez.
that that you ejected." And if you know Stacy, and if you don't, same thing. Stacy's such a servant leader, and Stacy's point was one, and it's the point of the story. Like, who packs your parachute? Because many times there's going to be someone in your life that maybe they're visible, maybe they're not, but their role packs your parachute and makes you better. And then Stacy's question was, whose parachute do you pack? And so that is my question for both of you. Who's one person that packs your parachute that makes a difference in your life? And whose parachute do you try to pack? John, I'll go to you first on that one.
Sure. I mean, they say heaven helps those who help themselves, but it also comes down to trust. So you've got to trust people. Trust is a reciprocal. So I guess I pack the parachute for my friends and my family on a personal basis. I'm that person, I've always had that thing, you answer your phone, you do your best. This is what I always say, you show up and you do your best. That's been in every Cisco DD manual. And I- also when, like Tony's a salesman through and through. He's probably a better salesman than me. I won't tell him that, but he's world class.
Not
But
on a
your
podcast that
customers, if they trust you and they trust our relationship, you're going to land many times. So I hope I can pack the parachute for the people in the market who trust me, and obviously the people at Cisco who work with me. So it's a personal question and it's a business question. Those are the people I pack for.
And who's been a figure over this 25 year, um, you know, t 25 years, 35-year partnership? Is there one person that stands out that packed your parachute, that made a difference in you and saw you maybe before you knew you could do the amazing things that you've done, John?
Look, our leaders had I think if you're a successful leader, you're a master motivator and you're also a good judge of characters. I think both our leaders, um, you know, picked good and bad people, and the people that stayed were hopefully better than not. And I just think, they set the rules of the road. So as much as our leaders set the rules, the leaders at Cisco set the rules too. So you work hard, you tell the truth, you do your best, and you actually work together. So as long as you subscribe to the rules that both our executive teams laid down, I think you basically got a parachute that opened.
Yeah, I love it. The people that started this relationship, that created that handshake, are the ones that pack the parachute that we all get to use today.
Correct.
Tony, how about you? Same question.
Correct.
so as someone who's actually used a parachute, that really hits home. Boy, when that parachute opens, there's no better feeling. I can say. So, I I would just build on what John said. It's probably not any one person. I think that would just do a disservice to all the people who are part of this relationship. So I really think the parachute's about the team, everybody who's involved in the relationship. really helps. And as John said, as we come together as a team, that's how the parachute gets packed. And we're just, it's always a team sport. And so I think how we help each other pack each other's parachutes on, every day you get up and you help each other. And I know for my team and John's team, it really is about that, just helping each other every day. And that's whose parachute I'm trying to pack is, everybody I interact with. How can I help? What can I do? How do I make this better? And I think that approach has been a winning formula. Just showing up. How can I help? And also uh, sharing ways I can help. So not just asking how, but also sharing how I can help. So, and then on the parachute on the personal side, there's just been so many people, Jeff. I think that's important to understand so many people along the way who've helped me personally and professionally on the parachute side. And I think both sides of those equations matter. I mean, it's six or seven. They're both important. So
Yeah.
I could, if I was going to say AI, I was going to say six, seven, just for John. And I
What
know
about Tony? Honey badgers? Honey badgers don't care. They expect the parachute to
I
open.
just don't care.
Well, I love it. And I think if we think about 35 years, we think about how you not only last 35 years in such a crazy industry, but also thrive with this durable partnership. You don't do it without the people that come before you packing your parachute and you being willing to pay that forward and do the same thing. I've absolutely loved this conversation. I hope that it has packed the parachutes of the people listening in terms of what partnership looks like in real life. And I can say that both of you have been part of that group that packs my parachute. And I've learned from you over the years and just enjoyed the relationship that we built. And so I want to thank both of you for joining, celebrating 35 years. And here's to however we have to do it, whether we have to freeze ourselves or whatever, Tony, like for us to show back up in another 35 years to be part of that 70th, that 70th year celebration of the NTT Cisco partnership. So thank you both for joining. I'm grateful and look forward to the next 35 years. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.